Okay, and we're recording, so let's go ahead and get started. So today we're going to talk about how to make improvement videos and some tips on how to record your screen to do that process. So there's various methods that we could use. We're going to do how to use Zoom to make recordings, the controls and the settings, and then saving the naming of the files. Then similar with the Screen-Cast-O-Matic. Those are two main methods that we have at our disposal to be able to create videos. Then we're going to take a look at the tips for planning and making a video, how to load it to YouTube, and once you got it prepared, how to submit it to the training support team who can load it onto the training portal. We'll discuss the pros and cons of the different methods and just have a Q&A open forum. So I don't expect that this session will run super long today. A lot of these tips are pretty straightforward, just a matter of getting in and seeing what they are. So we'll start out by looking at how to use a Zoom to make a recording. Zoom is a format that we're used to. It's on our desktop. We use it every day. They've got very simple interface tools. The Zoom itself doesn't show you the Zoom tools when you're in a Zoom meeting. So what I did was I just did screen captures to show how to go about doing a Zoom meeting and then recording it to create your video. So in the home button of the Zoom window, just select New Meeting. And that's going to bring up your camera view. So you'll see what's on your camera. At this point, you can select the screen share and then choose the content. Once you select screen share, it's going to ask you, do you want to share screen 1, screen 2, or a specific application? For me, I always go to screen 1. It's the one that I'm looking at the majority of the time. And then it captures the whole screen while you're working on it. Easier to navigate around that way for me. Once you share the screen, whatever's in your sharing page, in this case, the training page for me, your controls on Zoom get undocked. So when your controls are undocked, you have to kind of hover around them in order to bring up the additional controls that you need to do the recording. You'll also see that your thumbnail is showing up on your screen at that point once you're sharing. So you can move that thumbnail off of your view. However, if you're recording at this point, your completed video, even if you've moved that thumbnail off, will show up in your camera view. It'll show up in your completed video, okay? That, however, can be changed in the settings. So in this case, this meeting that we're doing right now, I have the settings established so that even though I moved the pictures off the side, they will show up in the final recording. You may not want that if you're creating a training video. So this next is to show you how to disable that. So if you go into the main Zoom folder, when the program's open, go over here to the settings button. And in the settings button, drop down to recording. Then if this is checked, record video during screen sharing, which that's how I have mine set up now, then you will get that thumbnail on your final recording. So simple enough, you just deselect it, and then now you won't have that thumbnail show up when you're doing your recording of the Zoom screen. Okay, any questions so far? These are just the basics to get started. Okay, the next is your controls, which are undocked at this point. You would need to hover over those controls, and then you can select the more it'll bring up this additional selections menu, and you select record on this computer. Okay, once you get started, when you hit record, then you go ahead and go through your lesson plan, spelling out all of your content, moving your mouse around, showing the menus that you're doing, whatever it is that the topic that you're training on. Okay, so that's this part here, just recording that whole lesson. You saw in the outline, we're going to go over the tips on how to create a good video after we go through the mechanics of how to do the recording in Zoom. Once you're done recording, you'll hover over those controls again, and then you can select pause if you're in the middle of something and you're going to come back to it. Or in most cases, you'll finish your lesson and you'll just hit stop recording. When you stop recording, you can stop sharing your screen, whatever. Once you're completed though, you need to hit the end meeting for all before your lesson will actually, your recording itself will convert and turn it into this MP4 file. So after you hit the end meeting for all, you'll get this pop-up that'll show that it's converting that. Once it's fully converted, it's going to open up a separate window in an Explorer window, and it's just going to call it something generic like Zoom_0. So there's a couple of files in here. This one that's at the bottom, that Zoom file, that's your MP4. That's the one that we use to directly upload to YouTube. So when you're renaming your files for what your content is, you can ignore these other two. It's just this bottom file that's called the Zoom_0 that you're going to be using to upload to YouTube. Okay, so this is that saved file. At this point, you can just rename that file based on what the content is. So in most cases, you want to call this the same name as what you intend it to be called when you load it onto YouTube on the training. So if it's training video 1, then that's what you're going to expect to load onto YouTube. That's not a full, let's put it this way. You have the option when you post it to YouTube that you can change the name. So if you named it something here and you decided later that you wanted to add the spaces between it or call it part 1 of 3, whatever the case is, you still have the ability to do that once you load it to YouTube. But you'll see why where the preference would be to name it how you want it to be named on YouTube once we get to one of the later steps about submitting this to the training team. Okay. So once you get to this point, then we'll refer to the instructions on the training page on the portal under the Creating Training Start here. And we'll go into those lessons in a minute. So for that's pretty much the basics of just recording something in Zoom. Again, not the tips and techniques, but just the mechanics of it. So any questions on the mechanics on Zoom to start with? Good there? Okay. So what we're going to do, I'm going to stop share, and then I'm going to let Quentin take over and present how to do the recording on Screen-Cast-O-Matic.
Okay, so we just started using this recently to make some videos, myself and Quentin McDowell and Chris. So basically, there's a free version of the Screen-Cast-O-Matic, and then there's an upgraded version with that you pay for with additional features. We're just using the free version. I'll open that, and I've been using it a short time, but it's very user friendly. It's pretty easy to use, and it's got a few additional features beyond what Zoom does. So first of all, when you open it, it shows you the window here, the extent of what you're going to be recording. You can adjust this by pulling it side to side. It kind of froze there, it looks like. or you can also go in and adjust the size on the settings menu that pops up automatically. You can even go full screen. That's nice that it's kind of freezing up a little bit. It doesn't do that all the time.
It's
So,
probably a byproduct of having Zoom and Screen-Cast-O-Matic
yeah,
running at the
possibly.
same time.
So there's a couple different options. So you can just record the screen, which will be highlighted with the black and white box. You can do your webcam, or you can even do both. And I'll just show that just to show that it basically record the window and it would have an image from your webcam down at the bottom. Or you can even move it around if you'd like it in a different part of the screen. I'll go back to screen and we'll just record, as if we're making a video of just the window that I've got here. So going through the settings, there's a couple of things here. The different ways to show it. Then there was just a note here that on the free version, there's a maximum of 15 minutes. So if you want to make anything longer, then I guess you'd have to upgrade. You can adjust the size from the toggles here, or like I showed you, you can adjust it by just pulling it. And you can also move it around. And then this just asks you to select which microphone you're going to use, or I believe you can even mute it if you don't want to narrate along. And then this was another additional feature where you can have computer audio that would play along in addition to your voice narrating, but this isn't available on the free version that we're using. And then some of the preferences, there's just some different buttons here. I haven't messed too much with these. I've just used a standard version. So a couple things about it, it's pretty easy. You adjust your frame where you want it, and then you hit record. It goes 3, 2, 1, and go, and you start recording something. This is my sample recording, and then I pause it. The cool thing about this, you pause it, and you can, like if you're recording maybe one screen, and then you want to look at something else and show additional something else after that, you can continue where it's left off. So I'll do record, 3, 2, 1, and I'll record a second piece that will go after the first one. I pause it, and you can see on the bar down here, there's the total recording that I made, split with the red line showing the difference between the first one and the second one. So one thing I can do is if I go back, like if I didn't like the second part of what I recorded, and go back, and it'll put me at the end of that first bit that I recorded, and then I can start again from that same spot and just ignore the second part that I recorded the first time. So I can pick it up, 3, 2, 1, and then I can re-record that second part again, and then pause, and I'm finished. And I can do that. I'm sure there's a limit to the number of times you could do that. I guess probably just until you hit your 15 minutes. But I know you can do it multiple times where you'd have multiple segments if you're trying to record different screens or different programs or whatever. And then after that, you can delete the entire thing if you want to delete it, or you simply say done, and it will ask you if you'd like to edit it, which in the free version you can't really do any editing, and it'll let you know that if you click on it. So all we do is just save and upload. At this point, it'll kind of give you a representation, and it'll allow you to view your video that you've recorded, and you can run through the whole thing. Just that. So I went through the whole thing. You notice also it follows the mouse around. That's another thing that I think is kind of cool, how it does the little circular mouse thing. So anyway, after you've previewed it, and you can even adjust the length at the end or the beginning, like if you've got 10 seconds of dead air at the beginning, you can go ahead and adjust that, or even at the end you can adjust it. But other than that, you can't move anything around in this free version. So you've created your video. I guess you can upload it to YouTube. For us, we'd have to be able to be logged in. So, and that's a whole nother step. Or you can upload it to the Screen-Cast-O-Matic, I guess, if you want, if you sign up for an account with them. What we've been doing is just save the video file. By default, it saves as an MP4. or you can adjust the file name to be whatever you want it to be. And then you browse to where you're going to save it. I'll just save it on my desktop. And I'll actually just, well, yeah, okay, recording 4, that's fine. And then here you can also, the highlighted cursor that I mentioned, you can choose whether or not you want to do that. You can actually even take the cursor away. So there won't be, if you don't need to point to what you're looking at in the video, you can make it, because that might be distracting to see your arrow moving around. So you can remove that. And the captions, I think that was an additional thing that's not on the free version. I haven't messed around with that. Then at this point, you've chosen what you want to call it and where you're going to save it. You publish. It takes a second. And then you can play it or look at it or whatever. I just hit done. And then I would go to where it was. It's just on my desktop, so it's right there. And I can open it up and watch it. And it opened on the other screen, but it opened and that was it. And from there, also that's it. And then Bill will follow up with what we do and how we upload to YouTube and everything. But that's basically it for the Screen-Cast-O-Matic, at least as far as I know on the free version.
Let's keep it on your
has any
screen.
questions?
Yeah, let's
Okay.
keep it on your screen for a second, Quentin. How do you get the Screen-Cast-O-Matic to launch? How do you open that program?
What you do is you can download the free version and then just open it like that. There is kind of a weird thing where, for whatever reason, I'm not sure what's different about it, but mine, when I click on the icon, it opens the web page, and then I hit to launch a video from there. It's on this screen. It just goes to the web page, and then I just hit launch a free recorder, and that's what it does. I know Chris had successfully downloaded it, and then his would open just a separate window or its own dialogue. But either way, you download it, or I guess you don't even need to download it. You could just go to the website and do what I had just done there and click on to create a free video. And I think the only difference might be that is if you create an account and you log in, then maybe it would open directly on your computer for you instead of directing you to the website. So that's another option. But without creating an account or anything, it's easy enough to just download the icon, I guess the shortcut, and then it will open it up for you.
Okay, so the version you're using is basically you just type in Screen-Cast-O-Matic and then you're running it right from the browser. Is that right?
Yeah, as far as I could tell, because for me personally, it directs it to the browser and then I open it there. So, I mean, it is installed on my computer, but for whatever reason, it must be the light version or something where I have to run it directly from the browser.
And then Chris, you had a version where you worked with IT to have them help you actually download a version of the program. Is that right?
So when I was opening it up, it was trying to do the web-based version, which downloads a file, and it wouldn't let me open that. So I worked with IT, and they had to change some settings on our firewall. And then when I was off of VPN, they said try to open it, and I did. But I had also created a free account, and so I don't know on which version of that it changed. So when I open it up, when I go to my little Windows icon and go up to recently added, it actually opens up a dialog box at the bottom of my screen from my computer. It doesn't go onto the internet. So I don't know which of those pieces of criteria caused that to happen that way, but.
Okay, very good. All right, well, let me go back to screen share on my side. Okay, so that's the mechanics of doing the Zoom and the Screen-Cast-O-Matic. And then what we want to do next is refer to some of these instructions on the portal under the training page in order to see some of the content on how to create a good video. So if we go to the portal under training, creating training start here has this how to create and submit video. So when you click on that, it opens up this PowerPoint presentation, we created this as part of the training support team when we were doing that Kaizen. So we've got the tips on how to make a great training video. So the first is create an outline. Know what you want to convey to the trainee. Then state your category and the topic at the beginning. That way you've got the content that you're going to be discussing prominent in your video. Then be clear and concise. Keep it short. You don't want to have videos that run on that are hard to track what's happening later. But even if you're keeping it short, don't rush. If you're trying to rush through something, then it makes it very difficult for the user to follow along, especially if you're navigating between windows or you're opening different programs, etc. If you're doing a longer topic, it can be broken up into multiple segments. You could split it into part 1, 2, 3, etc. So the next part, this is actually the link to the Screen-Cast-O-Matic. We also have a video that Jessica made that outlines similar to what Quentin did with the discussion items. Okay, so when you're narrating, you can use the Screen-Cast-O-Matic, or as we just discussed here in this meeting, you could use Zoom. So speak in a loud and clear voice. Record only one screen. You don't want to record wider than what's going to show on your screen, because then the user will have a weird interface from their end. And then make a reference to other training videos if necessary, especially if this is part 2 of 3, etc. And then if possible, record in a quiet place. And at this time, we were in the office, so we had empty conference rooms. So if you went into the office, I'm sure you could find an empty conference room right now.
Yes, we have a lot of them right now. So.
But for now, just record in an empty, quiet place.
Ironic.
Yes, my quiet place is not too quiet. She's off of school, so. All right, so then the next part is to submit your training video. We have the links here. I haven't checked these since we've got the new portal, so I'll have to PDCA this page at least. But we also have additional instructions. So when we go back to here on the creating training start here, after creating and submitting the video, our next lesson is how to load that onto the YouTube channel. So this is based on when it was easy to log into the Walters and Wolf YouTube. These settings have changed since then, so we're going to discuss this in a little more detail. But basically, you would navigate to YouTube and log into the Walters and Wolf account. We do have a link on where to find the username and password if you haven't logged on, or if you're not logged in there. Then you select the upload button. Select the file that you want to upload, and that's what we were talking about before, naming your file, putting it in that folder on your desktop so that you can load it to YouTube. Then once you're in the YouTube interface, you would add the title, a short description. If you want to tag it, you could select which playlist it goes on. Now you have to select, is this content intended for children? And then you select it to be public, and then you publish it. After you publish, then you share it, you advertise. So for example, when we publish, the training support team will advertise by posting that we've got new content at our engineering meeting, for example. So that's how you publish to YouTube. if you're logged in, it's pretty straightforward. Now we do have some little caveats. Oh, let me just go to this point, then we'll talk about if you're logged in or not. So the next part is once you've got your video created and published to YouTube, then you're going to send an email to the training support team. So that's also right here on the engineering training page, brings you to here. You go to the creating training start here, and there's a send mail to submit video. You click on that. If this opens up in mail for Windows 10, then you can change your settings in here. You go to settings, and then you select your default apps, and then you would just select for this is going to be under O. Let's see. Sorry, let me scroll down to it.
Hey,
Then
Bill,
you
I
would
think
just,
you're on the wrong tab.
there, sorry, Outlook, there it is. Default apps, and then you select Outlook. When I first opened this email, it opened in that mail for Windows 10. And then Derek pointed out to me, if you change your default app, then it'll open up right in your Outlook. So this is pre-populated. It's got the subject, please post the video, and then the training support team. So you would just fill in what category it is, the topic, copy and paste the link in there, and if there's any additional notes. So that would be if you're able to publish it yourself. And then the training support team will put it on this training page, and it'll go in whatever category. So right now we have a lot of these training sessions. They wind up here in the classroom training content. So this lesson, for example, will be published here afterwards. But if it was any of these other categories, if you're doing something in Revit, it would be published here. So those are the main methods to be able to generate the content, to be able to publish it. Now let's go back to this. So if you're logged into the Walters and Wolf YouTube account, then it'll work. And we do have members of the training support team that are logged in. So if you're not logged in, well, there's a couple of ways you can approach this. You can follow the login methods, but in order to actually log in, you need to get the security code, and that goes through Steve Watts. So if you're going to do that, I would recommend checking in with him first, saying, hey, I want to log in. When this code comes in, can you send it over to me? However, that may not be practical for everyone. So we're kind of tinkering around with an alternate method. So we created in the lean folders, there's training videos for submittal folder now. And right there, there's a README file. So if you open the README file, it's got the instructions on this alternate method. So it's got the link for where this file is located. And it just goes through that it's been created as an alternate method for submitting the training if you can't publish. So if you're not logged in, for example. So in those cases, name your training, the video, the same that you want it published to YouTube. That'll keep it simple for the team that's actually taking your content and publishing it to YouTube for you. Because not only will we publish it to YouTube, but we'll also publish it to our portal. So then you would navigate to that engineering training in order to follow those steps that we just went over. Select the send mail to submit the video. Then since you didn't actually post that to YouTube, I've got a little snip here of what to do instead. So the YouTube link is really not applicable. So you could just put NA there since you weren't able to publish it. And then you could just put the note that the file is located in this folder, link it, and then tell us what the name of the file is. Then the training support team will go ahead and post that to YouTube and publish it. You'll get a note back that that content's been posted. And then we're going to delete that video because it's on YouTube now, so we don't need to keep those original copies. And as always, thank you for creating content. So that's the main structure of how to take care of creating lessons, etc. So next, we're going to just kind of go to the, let me see, do I want to go back to, I can just have this up as a background, is fine. So now we could discuss the pros and cons of the different methods, and then just kind of have an open format Q&A. So Zoom, one of the pros of using Zoom is a format that we're in every single day. It's right there. It's accessible. It's user-friendly enough. We know how to get in and navigate it. There's not a 15-minute time limit on it. If you wanted to record longer sessions, you can record as long as your Zoom meeting lasts. And it's the interface to record and publish it is built in by default so that you can actually save that file. It brings up the folder and everything, so it's pretty easy to save that file and then move it over to the lean folder once you've renamed it. Some of the cons maybe are your controllers do get undocked, so you have to kind of hover around on them a little bit in order to get those controls to pop up to where you can click on them with the mouse. If let's say you don't want to have your video showing, if you forget to change your setting of not recording the thumbnail, then you're going to have the thumbnail of you talking while your video is going in the finished product, even if you move it off and you can't see it. So those are a few of the pros and cons there. And then I'm going to let Quentin and Chris and Quentin kind of debate the pros and cons of the Screen-Cast-O-Matic.
So I'll start with the pros as I see them as the big differences between the Zoom way of doing it. With the Screen-Cast-O-Matic, you're not limited to just to recording the entire screen. You can zoom that window to be as bit larger, as small as you want, focused in on a particular application or whatever. And then also the way that it doesn't have a lot of editing function in it, but there was the editing that I showed where you can kind of edit together small pieces. And even if you're not doing like different windows or anything, it's helpful if you've got a longer presentation that you like to do. You kind of make it into bite-sized pieces. You kind of do your first bit, you get it down good, and then you do a second little bit, and you've got a couple trials at it. If you mess up something, you can just back up that one little bit and record it again. And that's handy to have. And then I guess some of the downsides would be that it is a separate application that you've got to download, and that I think that was kind of it.
Maybe just the time limit if your topic is running longer.
Yeah, there's that as well too. I mean, yeah, we haven't gotten into anything where we need to have a really long video, but I guess if you would, or if you needed to do any additional editing or something that's limited, at least in the free version that we're using.
Yeah, I like using the Screen-O-Matic. Like Quentin said, we can adjust the screens and highlights the little mouse and stuff. But I wish that there was some sort of like free editing software where it doesn't matter if I record in Zoom or if I record in Screen-O-Matic, where I could put clips together to make a longer video. But that's my only complaint, is the lack of editing.
One more positive is that it does highlight your mouse. So if you are showing somebody the step-by-step, for them, a lot of times your background is white and your mouse, your little cursor is white.
Yeah.
So having it highlight is a little bit easier if you're trying to watch something. That's one other positive.
Okay. Excellent. So some pros and cons of both. And then at this point, it's just open for Q&A, open forum. Any questions you guys have or additional instructions about getting content over to the training support team? Like I mentioned, once you send it over, we'll publish it on this page so that everyone has access to it.
Hey Bill, on the Zoom, do you have when you share your screen, do you have the advanced tab option that lets you on the advanced, rather than picking a screen or picking an application, it gives you the option to pick a size like you can on Screen-Cast-O-Matic. That's what I use when I have to do a share screen because my screen is so wide. I'm able to pick a size, like drag a rectangle.
Would that be in the settings like we saw in back on one of these early slides here when we went into the settings to disable the
Yeah, you might have to go to the settings, either the web settings.
this one? Does that show up in this one somewhere, Chris?
No, when you click the share button, it gives you like the selection of the windows that you want to share, like screen 1, screen 2, or the
Okay.
apps. But there's a tab. I think you have to change it. It says advanced, and you can pick a size.
Okay, very good. So that if, let's say you have a screen like Chris's, it's one really wide screen, then I would recommend doing that in advance of starting the recording so that you hit the share, but then you're selecting how big a screen that you want to share. So what Quentin was showing us on the Screen-Cast-O-Matic, you have the ability to just drag that around, but in Zoom, you can select that in the advanced settings apparently. So that's a good tip. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah,
Um,
I've used that too. And then the other thing is if you just stop your video, it won't record you. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to go all the way through the settings. If you just don't have your video running, it won't record you at all. It'll just do your screen.
I see. So if you were in those settings where you have you can turn on the camera or the microphone, you just turn that off at that level, and then that does the same thing as just deselecting this.
Yeah, I used to use Screencast-O-Matic a lot. In fact, I used it 100%. And then when I tried out the Zoom one, I ended up liking it better. It just seemed more intuitive and went easier for me. The editing, there is some editing features inside YouTube once you've uploaded to YouTube. So that might be one thing that people could explore. And obviously you can get the thing on your phone, the iMovie to edit videos, but you have to get those MP4s into your phone, which is kind of a pain. But
Yeah.
yeah, it'd be nice if some editing tools were built in. But I've used the Zoom a lot lately, and it's worked pretty well for me. So.
I've been using Zoom for doing the recordings that I've done as well. And the thing for me is that even though there's not a great ability to do editing, it's pretty natural, even if you have a little hiccup here and there. If somebody's watching the video, they're going to be paying attention to the content and they won't worry too much if you're, wandering around in your discussion or you say 2 or 3 times, it happens.
have you guys used PowerPoint? PowerPoint has in the insert menu, you can record a screen, and it works just like Screen-Cast-O-Matic. You can select a portion of your screen to record, and it works just like Screen-Cast-O-Matic, where you can pause. You can pause your video, your recording, and then start up again using the same recording, and then saving it is there's no what do you call that? It doesn't like convert it like Zoom. There's no pause because it's already the MP4
Okay.
format, and it's unlimited length until you run out of hard drive space, I guess.
So I haven't explored that. Has anyone else explored recording in PowerPoint?
I will definitely try it. I haven't tried it either. That's a
So,
really
so Chris, here's a great opportunity. You can make a video lesson of how to record a training session by using PowerPoint, and we can add that into these slides.
All right, I'll do that today.
Nice.
Chris is on it.
All right, excellent. Okay, still open format. Any other discussion items or questions? That seems to be it. Okay, now keep in mind, we do have a lot of good content here on the training page. And this first one with the creating the training has how to do that quality video and how to load it. If you go down, in fact, if you go down here to the general training, this has the original version from Jessica on how to do a video using Screen-Cast-O-Matic and Zoom. So those are available if you want to see if there's additional points there. Her version on Zoom goes through the web page to start, where I just started since we had Zoom open. I just started from there. All right, well, if that's all, thanks for attending the class and sharing some ideas with us. And as always, we appreciate creating content. So make that content and we'll get it published for you.
Thanks, Bill. This
Thank-
was good.
Thank you, Bill.
Thanks,
Bill.
guys.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks,
Thanks,
Quentin.
Bill.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Bill.
guys. Thank you, guys.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks.